A massive populist uprising is surging against the far left throughout our nation. In this video, we're going to look at the extraordinary ways in which ordinary Americans are rising up and fighting back against leftist lunacy. A massive uprising that's only just beginning. You're not going to want to miss this. Greetings, everyone. Dr. Steve here with you. I certainly hope you're all doing well. I look forward to this time with you each and every day. If this is your first time here with us and you're looking for some daily encouragement and optimism in the midst of all the nonsense that's spewed out from our left-wing Marxist media, then you've found your oasis here on this channel. We analyze current events, analyze some super awesome conservative trends so you can live in the present light of even better things to come. We help you to think better so that you can feel better, right? So if you haven't already done so, you know what to do. Make sure to smack that bell and subscribe button. It'd be an absolute privilege to have you as a regular part of this channel where each and every day we get to celebrate the inevitable collapse of left-wing globalism and the unstoppable rise of a new conservative age. Now, before we dive into things here, let's give a huge shout out to the sponsor of this video, and that is Prepper's Peak new solar water heater. So now for the dads in your life, Father's Day is approaching, and with all the lockdowns we just witnessed, this solar water heater can turn out to be his best friend. The solar water heater is an amazing device. It allows you to heat and boil water outdoors using simply sunlight. It can heat water in as little as 30 minutes and work anywhere the sun shines. So you can use it for all kinds of things. You can boil water, you can cook noodles and rice, you can sterilize your water for drinking. It's perfect for campers. It's easy to clean. It can be used anywhere there's sunlight. And the best part is that if you click on the link below, you'll get 15% off. So what can be better? Don't wait. Click on the link below before they sell out and get your own Patriot Sun cooker today. All right, gang, let's dive right in here. One of the things we always have to keep in mind, okay, as discouraged as we may get, one of the maxims of left-wing liberalism that we always have to remember is that left-wing liberals are at war with reality. Left-wing liberals are at war with reality. One of my favorite recent examples of this was when a Harvard professor came out with a published article that said that we needed to ban homeschooling once and for all because it encourages patriarchy and white supremacy. I know I'm not going to get into it nevertheless, but the article was written several months ago. Okay, she penned it several months ago, but ironically, it was finally published just this last February, March, right when the entire world was homeschooling. Kids across the entire world were literally homeschooling, going to school online because of the outbreak of the coronavirus. Only a left-wing nut could publish a piece that argued that we should ban a practice that the entire world was currently practicing. But that's left-wing liberalism. They are at war with reality, okay? That's why they require fake news. Fake news is simply an extension of the fact that leftist liberals are at war with reality. Hello, Jim Acosta. And nothing demonstrates this war more than the recent championing by our left-wing lunatics of the riots and the hysteria that swept our nation over the last few weeks. While at the very same time, by the way, impugning and denigrating the men and women of law enforcement who are simply trying to do their jobs. Now, keep in mind, I'm not just talking public opinion here. I'm not representing simply the popular opinion among liberal populations. I'm talking about liberal lawmakers themselves. Again, this war on reality could not be more explicit when you have lawmakers taking the side of law breakers over and against the very law enforcement they employ. When there's a total breakdown between lawmakers and law enforcement, you have an example of this dysfunctional perception of reality. And that dysfunction, that war with reality is now more and more catching up with the political left. There is right now in our midst, there is a massive populist uprising that's surging across the country, ready to push back the far left. Americans have had it. And they've had it absolutely with all this left-wing virtue signaling, all the left-wing double standards, the virus shaming, the mass shaming, all to be discarded the moment a bunch of left-wing rioters and looters start destroying our cities and our monuments, right? Americans have had it with this nonsense, and they're beginning to rebel. Let's start in Atlanta. As I'm sure many of you know, a white police officer by the name of Garrett Rolfe shot and killed a black man by the name of Rayshard Brooks. Now,
You should know that many believe that the police officer shot Rayshard Brooks did indeed have reasonable justification for the shooting, unlike the case with the killing of George Floyd. But regardless, the officer has since been fired, and as of just the other day, he has been officially charged with murder by Atlanta prosecutors, which was rather stunning given the fact that this incident did involve a situation where the police officer legitimately believed his life, his welfare was at risk in the incident. And so, needless to say, Atlanta policemen are rebelling. The Atlanta Police Department is reporting that they are experiencing what they're calling a, quote, higher than usual, close quote, number of officers calling out of work. Coincidentally, these were officers working the night shift. Interesting. Police officers scheduled to patrol the streets at night have begun calling in sick and not showing up. Just a coincidence, of course, right? Or a coinkydink, as my daughter likes to call it. Nothing to see here, just a coincidence. Let's move on. And to make matters even worse for the citizens of Atlanta, again, thanks to leftist liberals in charge, Atlanta police officers have actually stopped responding to calls in 3 of the department's 6 zones. Now, if you don't know, Atlanta police patrol 6 zones covering some 500,000 residents, which means half of Atlanta's streets are basically going, at least to some extent, unpoliced. Now, of course, the immediate response to that is, what the heck do you expect? You can't throw law enforcement under the bus, turning them into bad guys and turning the bad guys into good guys without there being a massive backlash and blowback. And that's precisely what we're seeing in Atlanta and indeed around the nation. We talked about this just the other day, but it's all part of this pattern of a populist backlash against the liberal left. And again, we're calling it populist because these aren't Democrats per se. These aren't Republicans per se. These are non-registered voters, people who are otherwise completely apolitical, who are suddenly getting red-pilled and have had enough of these left-wing lunatic antics. And so they're pushing back. As we reported the other day, police are beginning to resign in mass all across the country. City police are telling their left-wing liberal city lawmakers to take their cultural Marxism and shove it. You don't have to defund us or disband us. We quit. We're out of here. Cities are beginning to lose their police, and all because of this disgusting rhetoric being spewed from their city councils and mayors, all left-wing, all of whom have had the goal of taking the side of those perpetrating all the lawlessness and violence. At least 7 Minneapolis police officers have resigned. More than half a dozen are in the process of leaving as their own form of protest against city officials that threw them under the bus. In Florida, an entire SWAT team resigned after their police chief knelt with the protesters. I mean, just think about that. The SWAT team's letter of resignation stated unequivocally that the risk of carrying out their duties was simply no longer acceptable to them and to their families if their leadership is more aligned with the perpetrators of lawlessness than those entrusted to enforce the law. Again, these are consequences that never seem to enter into the mind of the liberal leftist. And that's, of course, again, because they are at war with reality. They cannot see the consequences, the blowback to their actions. In Buffalo, all 57 members of a police tactical unit have resigned in protest over the suspension of 2 of their colleagues who were filmed shoving an elderly protester to the ground. Now, this populist uprising, by the way, is not just police officers. We talked about this the other day. Take a look at this. 79% of truckers say that they refuse to deliver to cities that are in the process of defunding their police departments. So what do you know? As it turns out, truckers' lives matter too, don't they? At least they do to the truckers and to their families. So their livelihood and their responsibilities to their families are simply not worth the risk of taking a job that has them entering into cities where left-wing chaos reigns. And so I wonder what store owners are going to do now with no longer any supplies coming to stock up their shelves. Do you think they're going to start maybe, I don't know, moving out of these left-wing sewers we call cities? Oh, wait a minute. Never mind. What do you know? It's already happening. Business owners are telling these cultural Marxist leaders to shove it as well. They're leaving these cities in droves. Think about it. Think about why on earth would they stay in areas where public officials were arresting small business owners just a few weeks back for trying to put food on their tables, only then to turn around and celebrate rioters and looters destroying their small businesses. What the hell, man? It's a small business owners are leaving. They're going to the exurbs, as it were, the more rural areas, who, by the way, are rising up and protecting their communities from this left-wing decay. I don't know if you saw this. A bunch of Black Lives Matter protesters descended on a small Ohio town which has only 13 black residents. And when they assembled, these 80 protesters, they were met with, get this, over 700 white counter-protesters armed with rifles, handguns, and baseball bats. Armed white men from motorcycle gangs, pro-police officer groups such as Back the Blue, they flocked the small town of Bethel, Ohio, and overwhelmed the small Black Lives Matter protesters with shouts of "All Lives Matter," "Blue Lives Matter," shouted them down. And speaking of bikers, we talked about this the other day. A group of self-proclaimed bikers for Trump. They're pledging to retake Seattle's Capitol Hill Autonomous Zone on the 4th of July in honor of Independence Day. Thousands have already committed to going. And their plan is to show up in mass numbers and begin the process of removing the barriers that were set up by these Antifa-stan thugs. They're going to dismantle the barriers and return the occupied police station back over to the Seattle Police Department. And there's nothing these Antifa-stan thugs can do about it. There is a massive populist revolt surging throughout our nation. As discouraging as these riots have been and the left-wing woke insanity that's accompanied them, we can all take heart that when you're at war with reality, eventually, reality always comes back to win. Now, before you go, you will definitely want to check out my latest video. I just uploaded it on how the liberal left has tried and failed to stop the biggest Trump rally ever scheduled for this weekend. That's right, they're like Wile E. Coyote trying to take down the Roadrunner. You're going to absolutely love it. So make sure to click on the link, and I will see you over there. God bless you.